Man, we have another one. Man, it feels good today. Today's Friday. I worked out this morning, had a couple of protein shakes. I lifted a mini bus. It feels like you got to work out, when you're trying to get ready for something big. And I will say we have a great, great guest on our podcast today. Amir, who do we have today?
Renard, I don't think the word big even captures how great we have a guest here today. So I'm just going to just go over the top a little bit here. We have the first female Olympian who medaled in Taekwondo for Team USA. I mean, how cool is that? And Nia Abdallah has been gracious enough to give us some of her time today. I'm really excited to talk to her today. And Nia, you and I have a little bit of a history. We worked for a brief moment together at a company, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So the way Nia and I got talking for our listeners is that I was bugging her a lot about how do I become a certified coach for the Olympics? Because at one point I was really curious about that. But anyhow, this talk is not about me. This talk is about Nia. Nia, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the journey of Taekwondo and Olympics? Maybe just a background story there.
Yeah, so the funny part is my journey to the Olympics came before my journey to Taekwondo. Um, and the reason why is I started off this dream very, very young. And I've learned over the years that I actually am one of those people that when I say something, like I want to do something, it is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And that started off when I was 4 years old. I was with my grandfather, and he was a big Olympic fan, like loved Jesse Owens. And he sat me down at 4 years old and explained to me not only like what the sports are, but like the background of it. And I remember this to this day of like how, and a lot of people don't know this, how the Olympics just was formed off of um, almost unity. The way that it started in Greece was there was different groups in Greece, and they said, let's stop all wars, stop all fighting, and let's just compete against each other to see who's the best. I love that concept still, even to this day, that there's something that powerful that can stop people from fighting each other, to actually compete and still get that competitive spirit out. And so at 4 years old, when my grandfather told me that, I went to my mom and said I wanted to win the Olympics. She didn't know at the time that I meant it. Uh, and then from there, that kind of started my journey of wanting to become an Olympian, even though I didn't know my sport. Funny enough, the in the same year that Olympics, Taekwondo became a test event in the same sport. So it was meant to be that sport because both of our dreams like came alive at the same time.
Nia, so I'm a Taekwondo practitioner. And for me, I know how much hard work it goes into it. And you sound like you had a fantastic mentor. And mentorship is a topic that Renard and I go back and forth on a lot. Is it fair for us to say that your grandfather was not just the inspiration, but also your mentor?
Yes, but he was just a start of a long line of mentors. I am super, super blessed to have always had mentors in each stage that were fitting for the stage. So yes, he was the very first one, but I had so many going through that, and I think we often try to stick with that same mentor that was in one part of our lives, but they don't fit. And so he was there to give the dream, but there was other people there to give me work ethic. There was other people there to give me tactical skills. There were other people there to give me the love of the sport. And so he was my first mentor of a long line of a lot of mentors.
That's incredible. That's an important lesson that you just shared there because I think a lot of us, at least in corporate, we don't recognize that having multiple mentors is a good thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So from a young journey or from a young stage, you don't know what your sport is. How did you even find Taekwondo? Like, was it just because it was the first time that it was being introduced at the moment?
So I had no clue at the time that that was happening. I found that out in hindsight. But once I told my mom's super supportive, so she just threw me in every sport possible. I've probably tried every sport you can think of on planet Earth. And she just threw me in sports just to see what I would like. Some of them I liked more than others. Basketball and track are kind of some of my secondary sports that I was really into. But I also grew up around Ninja Turtles and the Power Rangers. I had Power Ranger sheets and uh, the Karate Kid and all that, the Kung Fu stuff. I was in that era of time where that was kind of a popular thing. And so when my mom got married to my stepfather, me and him plotted together to get me to do Taekwondo. My mom was like, okay, if you're gonna do sports, you got to do the like girly sports. You're gonna do like gymnastics and like swimming, and she wanted me to do those, but my heart was set on doing some kind of martial arts, and so we came up with a plan to convince her to let me do just a summer program. And so we talked to her about I was going to be the little grasshopper and have discipline. Of course, I learned those things, but that wasn't what I was trying to get into. And so we convinced her to let us do the summer program. It was about a $500 summer program for like 3 months. My mom calls it a summer program that never ended because day one I knew it was my sport. Like I was a natural from the beginning. I love going to practice. A lot of people that do Taekwondo will know that normally you go like 2 or 3 times a week. I went every day and I would cry if I couldn't go. I love the sport from the beginning. And so that's kind of how I got into Taekwondo, was kind of a convincing of this was the cool thing because it was the cool thing for me to do.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah. Wow. You got me a little bit when you talked about kung fu and everything. I was the same way. I was watching kung fu theater as a kid, and that's what inspired me to get into martial arts as well. And I like that you planned it so early that this is something that you were going to do, and you didn't give up on it. Or were there any times where you almost gave up and said, like, this journey is long, I want to go do something else? Because when you get older, things change compared to when you first started. Was there any time like that?
Absolutely. I want to say um around like 14, 15, it started becoming a little bit difficult. When you're younger, it's I started Taekwondo when I was around 9. And so when you're younger, it's kind of your parents' whim. You just kind of do things. It's an extra thing. We go in the summer. But when you get to 14, you start trying to compete for teams. And crazy thing about my story is I won nothing until the Olympics. And so I 4 years in a row, I got second place at for junior team. I didn't make a collegiate team. I didn't make a senior team. I kept getting second place. I was always around, but never the winner. And so I never made a national team and all those stuff before I went to the Olympics. And so around that time, I started getting a little bit frustrating of like, is this the thing? And it's a weird place to be where it's easier to quit when you're last place. But when you're second and third, it's like you're there, but you're not there. So it was a tricky place to be. And I also started getting interested in other sports. Like I said, I love basketball. I love track and field. I'm a big WNBA fan, big track and field fan. And so I started getting into those other sports as high school approached. And so around 10th grade, I had to make that choice of which one am I going to do. I had background in Taekwondo. I love the sport. I love doing it. And I felt that I was going to be doing it either way. Because of that, I was just like, I'm going to stick out with it and see where I can get, and still compete and try to get on the national team, and then start competing on the higher level. And I really, really knew that I had made that solid choice after graduating because I had three choices. I could have went to the military. I had an engineer scholarship at Prairie View, and then I had the Olympic Training Center. And so I call that one of my big crossroads in my life, because that was what made the difference. That was what solidified that Taekwondo was like, it was all or nothing. We're gonna go until the breaks, until I can't do it no more. That we're gonna do it because I had made that decision, and one of my first decisions as an adult.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, that like you said, there was a crossroads, and I want to go into the training and preparation before you made the Olympic team. I want people to understand what type of training and what type of grind that is in order to even get to that level. What kind of training did you have to go through on a regular basis?
Well, first of all, it started way before the Olympics was even in my view. um Starting probably, I want to say 12, 13, me and my stepdad started working on like teaching me how to lift weights and how to run and jump rope, and starting those fundamental things. That was a key to a lot of my success. I was always known for being one of the strongest athletes, and part of that was because I started lifting so early. And we were all, me and my mom were kind of concerned because I was, a little girl. I didn't want to be like super muscular, but he guaranteed that that wouldn't happen, and he basically helped me get the foundation. So when I went to the Olympic Training Center, I already was foundationally sound. And so when I was in high school, I can, to this day, I can't tell you where the energy came from. I can tell you a day in life. I'll give you a week. Every morning, Monday through Friday, I woke up at about 5:30, went and worked out. So I did my running, my jump rope, my weights, all that stuff. Got on the bus, went to school, had to get A's and B's in order to do Taekwondo. That was part of the rules of my family. You had to have A's and B's or you can't go to practice. So I had to go do school. I also was in after school programs academically. So either I was doing the after school program or at one point I had a job. Either one was happening. Get home, go do Taekwondo practice, do homework, go to sleep, and do it all over again. Every other weekend was a tournament or a training camp or a session. My life revolved around it from a young age. So it was 12, 13. I didn't go to parties. I didn't have boyfriends. I didn't do any of those things. I was focused on training. Everything that I did, down to the things that I ate, how I slept. My mom would tell all the corner stores around the house that don't sell me candy. She told the lunch ladies don't sell me certain things. It was a joint effort of really making sure that I had a good foundation. And I always believe in that foundation. And so when it started off there, and then just really, really in the gym, working on things that other people don't work on. One of my coaches made me do, I'm known for my front leg kick. And the reason why that's like that is because I used to have to do 100 of what we do in Taekwondo. People that do Taekwondo now know of the cut to the face. Nobody was doing that. And so I had to do 100 of them after practice, each leg every day. He saw that in me. He saw that I had the potential to be able to use my front leg like that. And so it was a lot of that, doing the things that people didn't know before this is before the Olympic journey was in my sights. After getting that foundation physically, once I got to the Olympic Training Center, the foundation was keeping up with that physical, but also learning the tactical side of Taekwondo. And so really training with people and paying attention to why they do the things that they do. Not just kicking to see what they want to do, but thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead. Understanding the ring management, understanding how the refs even look at the things. And I was always a question asker. One of the big things I tell a lot of athletes is if you ever have a chance to talk to a ref, talk to them, pick their brain. I got to do that in 2003 at the Pan Am Games. One of our refs was there, and I would just sit there and talk to her for hours and just ask her. I learned little stuff like back in the day, 2 out of the 3 had to click the button. And she said, sometimes we can't see it. So if you're sitting in the side of the ring where you can't see it, even if you score, it won't get scored. And this is for electronic. That was key because it made me manage the ring differently. Now I know I have to be, if I'm going to try to score, it has to be to the side of the refs. And if I want to get away with not getting scored on, it has to be the opposite side. And so learning little things like that and incorporating that in my game, of course, alongside of doing the physical workout, I think that is what made the difference. Really having that foundation and focusing on that, and I just made it my life. My life was becoming an Olympian.
Wow, that's all I can say is, man, that's like you had your family focused on your dream. You were focused on it. You gave up what normal kids, want to go to parties, want to hang out. You gave that up. But I love what I heard from that is consistency. You kept up with it on a regular basis. You trained when other people probably weren't training. You make me want to call you the ring general in a sense, just hearing that, because someone else did that. Kobe Bryant did the same thing. Kobe Bryant said he talked to the refs on a regular basis to understand what they looked at on a regular basis so he could use that to his advantage. So that's a lot of people won't even do that. So the other question I have is you go through that, and I have to ask, everybody knows at some point when they know that they're great at something. When I got to a certain part in jujitsu, I was like, man, I'm actually good at this. I had to admit it to myself. When did you know that you were great at Taekwondo? When was that time it just hit you like I'm good?
So it was 2 moments, but the first one was probably the biggest moment, and it was in the very beginning. When I knew that I wanted to go every day, and that this was the thing that like I woke up thinking about Taekwondo. I knew that it was kind of a thing that I would be great at. And I think the second moment was really when I connected the physical with the mental, when I really started understanding the ring and moving, understanding the ring. And that gave me the confidence to face anybody. And that happened kind of earlier than people would think. It was before I made a national team. It was in the gym when I was fighting boys and I was able to score on them. It was it was in the gym when I tried this kick a million times and finally I did it correctly. Like those were the moments. They weren't like it wasn't just like this one moment, but those little moments added up. So when I got in the ring, like you can't tell me nothing because I kicked so and so that's on national team, been on national team three years in the face yesterday. Like, what are you going to tell me? And so it was just a kind of a collaboration of a lot of little things that kind of built that up, and it was like, okay, yeah, I can do this because anytime that I want to learn a new kick or learn a new technique, it came to me so easily and so naturally.
So Nia, I am breathless sitting here right now listening to you. I mean, the amount of grit and confidence and family support and dedication and discipline, this is incredible, you know? And I feel very fortunate that, right now you and I are talking about this subject because, I think a lot of people look at the success of, folks like yourself, because I mean, the Olympics is the pinnacle. A lot of folks who even begin to think about this feel like they can never get there. How do you maintain that level of confidence, and how do you transfer this to your students?
The the way that you can be confident is in the gym. Like people say that and it sounds cliche, but it really is where it is. I've always been confident because I know nobody was outworking me. Nobody got you might be faster than me, you might be stronger than me, but you didn't outwork me. And so that's where the confidence came, even in my everyday life, like because I do the things like now, like in the business world or anything like that, because I do that background stuff that people nobody sees. That's what gives me the confidence of like, okay, I know you didn't work harder than me. One of the things that I love sayings. I'm one of those people that will have sayings all over the world. But when I was competing for Olympics, on my ceiling, I had your opponent could be working harder than you. And the reason why I put it on my ceiling is because I wanted it to be the first thing I saw when I woke up and the last thing I saw when I went to sleep. Um, just to make sure that my brain knows because it's true. Like right now, when I'm going to bed, somebody in China is working right now. And so somebody always could be working harder than me. And so that always motivated me to be the hardest worker. Like I was first in the gym, last out. So if you're doing that, that's how you build that confidence of if you're the one that like was in the gym, you knew you did the kick. If everybody did it 50, you did it 55. I did it 55 5 days a week. That's what 25 extra. If I do that for a month, that's 100 extra that I did. I did 100 extra kicks just by doing 5 every day. And so because I worked so hard in the gym, I was like, there's no way that like you didn't outwork me. So like we're here, we're gonna scrap it out.
I love sayings too. I think so. The gym that I go to has a saying, has a big old sign that is one of my favorite signs. It says, "But did you die today?" you know, so, and you just reminded me of that sign. So, I mean, I would love to have you as a coach. If I was training for the Olympics, I think you are ideal. So, how do you bring the students who are you can see talent in them, but how do you bring them to that level of intensity where they need this to be successful? Not being the fastest or the most flexible or strongest, but just the intensity behind the work.
I think the first thing, and this is a mistake a lot of people look at, they say, I see talent and think that become a champion. And a champion is not in the talent, it's in the work ethic, where your brain is. So the first thing that I do is pick your brain. Where's your brain at? Like if your brain is not there, you can be the fastest, strongest, most fit person in the world. If your brain's not there, and we see it in sports all the time where you see this big behemoth of an athlete and you're like, oh my God, why can't they succeed? But a lot of times it's mental. And so really just capturing that mental, I actually rather have somebody with less talent and more mental than somebody with less talent with more mental than somebody with more talent and less mental. It's because that's where that last bit happens when you're in the ring. Like it really is a matter of, do I have the grit to make it through? Am I going to give up or not? Do I have the confidence? Because did I work out? Like, not working out and going out there just because you're talented only gets you so far. And so really the first thing is really picking their brains and helping them understand why they're doing it, and are you having fun? I always tell people the number one advice I can give anybody is to have fun. When you're doing it, if you're not having fun, you're not gonna do well. And so I always said, when I will retire when I stop having fun. I actually retired before that, but I never wanted to compete when I'm not having fun. And so really seeing if they have fun, if they have the work ethic, and if they have the grit, that it factor that we often talk about, that you really can't put your finger on it, but you know it when you see it. That's what I look for. And if you have that in there, I can boost you up. All that physical stuff, I can make you stronger. I can make you faster. That's the easy part. But that grit is hard to train.
Wow. Mindset, such a powerful tool there. And you're such a living example of how that mindset can drive a person to success. So, just to switch gears a little bit, Nia, I know that you said you retired from I guess, professional sports, if I can call that the Olympics, which it is. Um, what's next for you? Because I know you have a book in the works. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is a long time coming. After the Olympics, we really talked about like my journey of my story. And like I told y'all, I'm the ultimate underdog when it comes to a lot of things. Not making a national team, but making the Pan Am Games team and the Olympic team first. There is always a story in there, and we knew it. But I had to be ready for it, and it boils down to what I said about my sport. I had to be mentally there before I could write a word, and so it took me some years to really figure out, how we want to do this, when we want to do it, how we want to market it. And so I started just kind of writing down ideas, either when I'm bored, talking into my phone, and then like sitting down in front of the computer and just writing down parts of the story that I've told a million times in interviews, but writing it down. And so what ended up happening was I realized that my life is sectioned in three sections, and they all three have different lessons in it. And so I said I wanted to break it down into three parts. And so now we have a 3-part book that will be coming out. Part one will be coming out this September 14th. The reason why September 14th in Houston, September 14th is actually Nia Day. I have a proclamation saying this is the day that we celebrate Nia. And so September 14th is the date that we will celebrate kind of the first part of this book. And so the first part is kind of talking about what we just talked about, of that journey from that 4-year-old that wanted to win the Olympics to actually achieving, and what achievement looks like for me, or lack thereof, because at the time I didn't think I was achieving. I thought that I lost. Like, if you asked me back then, if you said congratulations, I would tell you why I lost. And so really walking through what that looks like, what we're talking about now is like that grit, and how that looked like to get there. And then the second book is from after the Olympics, what it feels like to be from an underdog to not an underdog, how that changed the way that I moved, the way that I trained, and what that journey was from then to retirement. And then retirement, the third book will be Retirement Beyond. And so all the books are the Nia Abdallah Olympic story is the name of the book, but each book has a section. So, for example, the first one will be a nation's first champion, like you mentioned earlier, of really just talking about like what that journey takes, like to be a first champion, to do things that other people didn't do, and how throughout the story doing little things made it possible for that to happen. And so super excited that it's coming out. Like I said, it's been a long time coming. I'm super excited for people to read it. I made sure that I didn't want it to be too long. I wanted to be accessible for people from age 11 on to grown-ups, of something that you can read, really understand the story, and get a message out of it. And so that's why we broke it into 3 parts. And so they'll be coming out. Like I said, you guys are kind of getting the exclusive of the pre-sales are now. So until September 14th, anybody that does pre-sales will get an autographed copy of them. So I'm really excited to try to see, really push it out. People have been asking for this book for forever. And so it's really exciting to do that and celebrate it on a day that signifies what I did for the country and for Houston.
Sign me up, Nia. I can't wait to read the book, honestly. I think it's incredible. So, on the note of the book, I love the fact that you're focusing on the young people too. Um, if we just think about the young people, teenagers, when they're getting ready for Olympics, what is that one message from your book that we should, as listeners, right now think about, or at least try and chew on?
The power of sacrifice. I think that is the theme throughout the book of not just my sacrifice, but the people around me. Like you mentioned earlier, I had a team. My family was there. My sister gave up her vacations every year because nationals was in on 4th of July weekend. So wherever nationals was, that was our vacation. The sacrifices she made, the sacrifices I had to make, really the sacrifices, and now the sacrifices can get you to the places that you need to go and get you in the right places. I think that's probably a key theme, especially on this first book, of how I got there in the first place.
Man, that's powerful. I'm with Amir. I need that book. I need it. I need to have it in my book, bookshelf in the other room. I need to have that book because that's powerful. The way you speak, you can hear how your determination, how that grind, how that made you in a sense. I want to go back to you being in the Olympics. It's that final match, and you just got the silver medal. You just became the first American to medal in Taekwondo. Did you understand how big an impact that was going to be then, or did it take a little while?
Absolutely not. I was very mad. Like I joke around all the time. The picture that you see floating around the internet of me with my hands up, there, I was about to be in tears. Like I was not happy. What people don't know about the Olympics is it's not, or like the way that it works. Once you get off that stage, like you go downstairs to go to the back, and TV cameras are in your face right away. That's why a lot of times you'll see interviews and they're still out of breath. It happens immediately. They go in your face and go, "How do you feel? What is this? How do you feel about what happened? Are you excited?" And you're like, "Yes, I'm excited." Yeah, because you haven't got the emotion of what just happened. I joke all the time and tell people, like, if you look at a podium, especially at the Olympics, first place, ecstatic because they just won. Third place, happy they're on the podium. Second place is pissed almost all the time. From now on, you're probably going to look at it and you're going to see it. It's a different, because you won third place, you won first place, you lost second. And so that was what my brain was saying at the time. Again, I'm 20 years old, my brain hasn't developed all the way, and I'm upset because I'm all like, I lost. And part of my book, it starts off in that moment. The book starts off in that moment where I was by myself. My parents weren't there, family wasn't, friends there, training partner, coach, nobody. It was just me sitting in that moment, and trying to understand what that meant, crying my eyes out, trying to get myself ready to go on that podium in front of millions of people, to get this medal that I'm mad about getting. And so it took me a while. I went through a depression for about 6 months afterwards. It really, really took me a while to understand, because of how competitive I was, that it wasn't me losing first, but it was me winning second. And it still to this day, I probably still got a little bit in me. I can't lie. It still makes me cringe a little bit when people tell me congratulations for winning the Olympics, because in my brain, I didn't win the Olympics. And so, what made the turnaround was the amount of people that started looking up to me. Um, it was so many people that I walked in a room and people were crying to see me. Like I had never seen that before. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what do you mean? And people saying that, like, now I believe that I can do it, especially being a black woman in America, like seeing little black girls going like, oh, like I can do this too. Like that being inspiring to people like that, even to the fact that one of the Olympians in the future had my poster on her wall, and inspired her to be an Olympian. Another Olympian, one of our last Olympians, he said that his Olympic dream started by watching me do the Olympics. Those are the moments that made me understand the impact. But in the moment, I was upset. Like To me, I just lost. Like, it wasn't that I won anything. To me, I just lost in front of everybody and I disappointed everybody. I had to see people who wasn't disappointed for me to really understand what that meant.
I can not on that stage, but I do understand when I used to do tournaments before I had to stop before I started getting old, and me coming in second, I used to be upset as well, especially when a coach said, "Man, you did a great job." I was like, "Man, I just lost." Like, what are you talking about? I just lost. I didn't get first. I lost. I'm like, so I get it when it first happens to you, you be like, what are you talking about? I didn't do great. I lost. But the impact of what you did has helped future generations. And that's big. You inspired future generations after you. Once you retired, once you started coaching, etc., you inspired other generations and probably will still continue to inspire other generations because you look at it, someone always had to be first. It had to happen. Someone, and it was you. You became the first person to inspire other people to make that decision because other people probably didn't even think about like, man, I want to be do taekwondo. I want to get to the Olympics if you were not the first. So it becomes a big deal. After that, you do this. When was it when you decided you wanted to start coaching? When did that happen?
It was a natural progression. In Taekwondo, it kind of is because Taekwondo it's a year round sport. Really, the natural progression is either you're going to coach, open up a school. Like it always is that because that's what we've been doing our whole life. And so, as I saw retirement, I planned my retirement. I'm one of the people I wasn't forced to be retired. I retired at 28, which is kind of young. I planned the retirement and I said, what do I want to do afterwards? And I had noticed that I had already started being kind of the mentor figure on the team. Like people were already looking to me, asking me for advice. I knew about training and different things from my experience, and so I was all like, okay, let me move in that. And I first moved into kind of the Texas State uh, coaching and just tried it out for that. I started doing that really, really more frequently, going to different tournaments, and then I got to be a part of the cadet national team. Got to coach internationally, and really start to understand and shift of like coaching is so much different than competing. Like people don't really understand that. They think just because you're a good athlete, you can be a good coach. It was a whole different muscle, and I had to do the same things. I had to train my mind and train my body on what that looks like and how to find the diamond in the person and not just tell them to do what I do. And really, a lot of people fail their athletes because they try to make them do what they do. But really understanding different athletes and how they move, and even if your best kick is my worst kick, how can I make sure that that is your bread and butter, even though I don't do it well? That was kind of the big transition for me.
Yeah. So now you're this phenomenal coach, and you're right. I think myself, Amir, we've all transitioned to coaching, and you're 100% right. It is way different than you doing it yourself. You got to remember the moves differently. You got to be able to teach somebody a certain thing. I remember when the first person asked me, I had to pause for a second and remember how to do the move because it was so natural for me to do it. I did not know how to articulate it back to somebody. I just was so used to doing it, so it takes like you're right. Not everybody who's great at martial arts or whatever it is going to be a great coach. You could be a phenomenal football player, Super Bowl rings, but be a terrible coach. So the transition is not easy. I would tell anybody who's listening, it's not an easy transition. It's not
The
simple.
funny part is
It,
harder when you're good. It's
yo, I believe it.
10 times harder when you're good. Because when you're not, like when you're not as good, you're already looking at other people and like how do they do things. So like your brain is already trained to do that. But when you're the best, like you're doing it your way because it works. So like it's a harder switch when you're actually good and succeed in it than it is when you're not. Like I always say that with like if you notice even in basketball, that's a perfect example of it. Some of the best coaches weren't that good at players. Like they played, they were okay, but we don't see Michael Jordan doing it. We see players that were like role players or like they moved around and got traded a lot. Those players are the ones that end up making better coaches.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. And now that you've done coaching, and I want to go back, when was that decision you decided to, I'm going to retire competing? When did you make that decision, and how was that for you? Because I know it probably had to be a difficult decision.
So it was a little bit after 2008. And so there was a big controversy with my 2008 Olympic birth. And we had court cases and all stuff going, and I almost quit then. But I talked to my family. I prayed about it, and I really wanted to leave on my own terms. So I said, 2012 or bust. However, wherever, if I lose first team trials or if I make it all the way to the Olympics, wherever that ends, that's where I'm going to end it. And so me and my coach started making plans on what that looked like. And I immediately started going to therapy on how to transition. And I think that's an important thing for athletes that we don't talk about enough. That really getting your bearings on what that looks like, because it is almost like a death of yourself. Because you become a brand new person when you're not an athlete anymore. Even if you become a coach, even if you stay in the sport, you're just a different person. Your motives are different. Remember, since 9-10 years old, I was training all day long specifically just to do Taekwondo. And so what does life look like? And so we started making that transition, started looking at what I want to do outside of that. Do I want to go back to school? All this stuff happened probably, I want to say 2010-ish. We started making that plan. And we started just working. And it was like, we're going to work until we can't work anymore. And I ended up losing in team trials and hung my shoes up. Immediately went to anti-doping and told them take me off the list. And so signed give them my letter to USA Taekwondo to let them know that I wanted to transition. And transitioning into coaching and being in the back. Like, even though I started off with coaching, I ended up moving towards really understanding the business side of what sports is, and the legal side of what sports is, and I immediately jumped on the athlete advisory council. I jumped on the board of directors to really try to understand what happens in the background and how I can make that experience better than it was for me. And so I started moving in that, and eventually now I am doing it on the Olympic side, where I'm the vice president of the Houston Olympians chapter, of really like figuring out how to do it in the future. A lot of times we're taught you either compete or you coach, and that's all you can contribute. And so I really wanted to really set an example for athletes to let them know that there's other things that you can do. You can announce, you can work in the business side, you can work in the tournament committee side, and really you can do all these other things that can impact the sport and impact the athletes just the same. And so that's what I started just trying those things, trying to be on the Olympic committee and tournament committee, trying to understand the background, being on the ethics board and doing all these things. Cause I knew I was a role model. And if I do the same thing that everybody else did, they're going to end up doing that too. And so I needed to show them there's another way out, even if it's not my permanent thing. I wanted to move into that. And so that's where we kind of landed on, of really me understanding that after I retire, I really needed to do more for the sport outside of in the ring.
That's
That's
amazing.
great.
Are we going to see you on the Team USA coaching circuit anytime?
So I am not coaching anymore. Like I said, I moved more towards like the back house of it. I want to try to do more and more with the back house of really making sure. Example, at one point I was helping with creating the plans on how do we even pick the team for the Olympics, and from the athlete's perspective of like what's most fair for the athletes, as I represent the athletes. And so if you see anything, you'll see me more in that side of it, and not necessarily coaching in a chair, but really helping the sport like grow and understand how we can make it better for the athletes.
So that's a very impactful position that you're in, and I'm so glad to hear you say that. So in your time that you've spent with the Olympic Committee, how would you say the process is going? Are we doing better? Is there more opportunity? Where would you rate it today?
It's a little bit both. There's stuff that's better and worse, and then we also have to take in consideration COVID made a big impact to all of what I'm saying. And so I think where we're doing way better is protecting the athletes. Just like all these other sports, Taekwondo had issues with minors and coaching we had those same issues. And so really I think the sport protects the athletes a lot more and protects kids a lot more than it did in the past. And the way that they do things are trying to protect them more like from injuries and all that stuff. I do think that we lost a little bit of the grit of like fighting things off. And I've often told people like because we're trying to protect the athletes from injury, they fight less. But that takes away like, oh, you got to fight for your spot. And so there's ebbs and flows with it. I do think that we're in we're going up, but I think it's almost like we're starting over as an organization, only because we don't have as many people that are competing. We don't have like as much pool. We're starting over, but we had to clean house in order to get where we're at now. I think the sport is a lot safer for our athletes though, like tremendously more safer for our athletes in multiple ways. And I think the opportunities are there. Just people have to understand where they're at.
Yeah, that's a great comment. I as an instructor, I can tell you at the dojo level, safety is such a big thing. I mean, we can't let any student on the floor without proper safety gear, and we inspect safety gear. That's just basic protocol these days.
Yeah.
So if you think about the athletes today that are entering in Taekwondo, do you see that there's an uptick in folks getting into Taekwondo, or there's actually a shortage of talent?
I think it's in talent. We have quite a few. I think there's just less people in the pool. Again, I think COVID made a big impact. Martial arts is one of those things that has always been an extra thing. The economy has made a big impact. It's a little bit of an expensive sport amongst other sports. So we do have less kind of numbers. We have the talent. I think we're always will have the talent, but it's just really finding that pool. I don't think we have as much of a grassroots pool of people, but it's growing, and we just got to build them up. As the sport evolves and as we evolve, we just have to build it up. So I think it's both a catch-22. We have the talent. Fun fact: we've had a woman medal every year since I've medal for the U.S. So every year we have a medal. So we had the talent's there. Whether it's a gold, silver, or bronze, we've had our first gold medalist in the 2020, 2021 year, and then we've had bronze medals the other years. And so the talent is there. At least from what I'm seeing, I just think we got to build people back up, and we have to wait for the economy and the world just to settle back in from this reset that we had.
So for the parents listening to this episode, how would you ask them, or how would you encourage them to, become part of this circle? Where do they start?
I think first you need to start with it starts with the school. Really understanding a totality of what your school's goals are. Some schools' goals aren't for your kid to be an Olympian. Some of them are just to teach your kid discipline and all these things. Some schools are just focused on the Olympics, but they don't care about the outside stuff. So you really have to understand what your school is doing, and be open to moving around. I moved around, not a lot, but I moved around more than the average, according to what the need was. And so I moved around. If I needed to be with somebody that would make me stronger, I was open to moving around. If I need somebody to be, of course, being loyal and having conversations with your master, but really, really being open to learning from everybody. I think one of my key things that made me successful was I was a sponge. Like if I saw that you had the best back kick I've ever seen in my life, I'm going to watch you do back kick and try to do my back kick like you. Will I do it 100 times? No, I probably do it once out of the whole tournament, but I learned how to do that best back kick. And so that really built my arsenal in practice. Especially I used to face a lot of short people. So I learned how to fight in the clinch. Everybody wondered how I learned how to fight in the clinch because I watched short people do it. I'm tall, but if I can learn how the short people do it, then I can know how, one, to defend against a short person, and two, to do it myself. And so that really built my arsenal. So really being open to learning from everybody. And I think that's a problem that we have in martial arts in general, where people are not necessarily open to all kinds of things and being able to absorb things and take what you need out of it. Either people take everything and try to do everything, or they take nothing. And so there's somewhere in between where you can take that and say, okay, let me try it one time. Let me see if it works. If it don't work, cool. You in practice. You got kicked in the head in practice. It is what it is. You learned your lesson. Or you might try it and you're like, oh shoot, that worked. And now that's something that you can add to your arsenal. So just making sure the parents and the child is open. And parents, make sure that your kid is having fun. I've seen so many parents like it more than the kids, and it's not good for it doesn't matter if they're the best. They won nationals 17 times. If they don't love it, it's going to end up bad for them. And so really making sure that your kid wants it, and making it like my parents made it. It wasn't my parents never had to threaten me to go to practice. They threatened that I wouldn't. Like that's how much I love the sport. And so making it the prize and not you get a prize for doing it. Making that the actual prize. And if it's not a prize for them, then really analyzing if that's the thing for them.
That's incredible. So Nia, I have no doubts that your love and passion for Taekwondo has made you a great entrepreneur as well. So what's next for you as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so because of COVID, I shut my Taekwondo program down. I do want to in the future to build it, but I want to think of Taekwondo in a different way. I am all about creating learners, and so I want to create a program where I can build the next owner of my school. And so I'm really working through what that looks like in the future of how I can create use the program that I've already created and making it so it can be closer to the business side of it, because I've gotten to the martial arts side and I've gotten the business side, and there's a reason why I've gotten both of those together, and really running a Taekwondo school like a business and not just for the love of it, because I love it, but I think it'd be more successful if I can run it like a business. I always say, I call it the McDonald's model, where you franchise it out. I've never seen Taekwondo schools do that, and it's built in for you to be able to do that. There's so many students that go from white belt all the way to black, and now they're your instructor. And they probably can run the school better than you. How can we create a program where we can help them do that and buy the school from you? And then I can go to another school and do the same thing again. And so I'm really working on what that looks like and thinking about Taekwondo in a different way and thinking about martial arts in a different way of the business side of it and what I've learned, but still keeping the passion and the love and the history of the sport in there and how that looks together. Those seem like they clash. And that's part of the reason why we're here. But I'm also now with the book coming out, just really trying to promote that. I plan to do a book tour with the book, plan to do more seminars and really get back into helping people understand the mental side of it, and the journey of it outside of just kicking and punching. And so those are kind of the two things that NIA USA is doing now, of really number one, the book, number two, really just promoting the book, promoting this idea that I have about how to be successful. And then in the future, helping people to understand how to be a good businessman and a good martial artist.
Amazing. I hope your tour stops in Austin. That's all I'm saying.
Look, Austin is on the list. I'm definitely going to try to go that way.
Well, you have to let us know when you're here for sure, because I'll definitely make a stop. I know you're based in Houston, so I'm sure that there'll be plenty of people who'd want to know, where you're traveling next. So are there like socials where people should go check you out?
Yeah, so if you type in my name, Nia Abdallah, in LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram, you will find me. On TikTok, I'm anti-Olympic, but that's more of the fun things. If you really want to know what's going on, I think my Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram are kind of the best places to go, where I'll be posting kind of links of where you can do things at, posting what's next, posting schedules, all that stuff will be in those places.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to it. We're all in Texas, so it's easy. You let us know where we definitely driving. I want to go back in general. Martial arts, I always try to tell people, is very humbling. It's very calming, even though in a sense you're fighting other people. Could you go into the part where how mentally it calms you in a sense doing martial arts for so long?
I think one of the biggest things is I understand that it's not worth it. Getting kicked in the face makes you understand if you should fight or not. Like, and so really just understand. I think a lot of people like lean on towards fighting because they don't fight a lot. And so when you're fighting all day long, for one, you're getting that aggression out anyways. But you also start thinking about like, is it worth it? in the end of fighting. Like I tell people all the time, I don't fight in the streets. I'm not fighting for free. For what? Like, what are we fighting for? And so it really gives me that calm, but also it just being able to, again, get that aggression out, kicking the bag and just being able to kind of be in peace with that. And exercise in general, outside of martial arts, just exercising. Taekwondo specifically is a full body workout. It's like swimming. Like you're going to work your arms, your legs, your core, your back, your everything. You're going to work those things. And so just really getting that exercise in. I tell people exercise is the best way to release stress. Just getting kind of hitting the bags and doing that stuff and getting a good sweat keeps it peace. But really at the end of the day, I don't need to fight because I already know I can. And so a lot of people, I don't have anything to prove. And so it really, really gives that peace. And I don't need to fight you because like I got a medal that says that I don't need to fight nobody ever again in life. But even if you don't have the medal, like I was fighting, even if you're doing jujitsu one day, you're like, I just choked somebody out last week. Why am I gonna choke you out at the bus? What are we doing that for? And so it really kind of gives you a perspective of how important fight is and how dangerous fighting is. It's so much, you really, really, I tell people, and I think a boxer said this too, you don't know until you get punched in the face. Like I say that about kicking, like people think they can get kicked until they get kicked. Like, and it was funny because because I was one of the stronger girls. I used to be the go-to person when like a random person wanted to get kicked because people were like, just kick me with the target, and I'm all like, you don't want that. And I used to be the person to do that and bust people in they stomach because you don't know what it feels like to get kicked until you're kicked. Like it really, and it gives you a perspective. Like I ain't doing that in the streets because like I got equipment and we got rules and stuff like that. What am I gonna do that over here? And so I've never been quick to anger. I've really been able to calm down. So that grasshopper that we sold my mom actually did happen, even though we didn't know it was gonna happen.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. Like you say, when it comes to jujitsu, I know Amir is because of his Taekwondo background. I would actually avoid a fight if I could, to be honest. I would avoid it because I was like, there's no tapping out in the real world. Like if I have to use this, you don't get to tap and walk away after that. I would rather not do that. You can call me what you want. I would rather walk away because you understand how, like you said, you get kicked in the face. You know how that feels. I've been choked out before. I know how going to sleep feels. It is not. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's not cool. It doesn't look great. It's terrible. So it's almost like you want to avoid that. Like I don't want to do that to you, and have to. But if I had no choice, yeah, it's gonna be you. It ain't gonna be me. That's the way I like to tell people. So, but martial arts in general, I tell people all the time, it is a very calming and humbling experience being in martial arts. It changes your outlook on things. You're very calm under pressure for a lot of things, especially when things are critical, things are at work. And I try to get more people to want to do martial arts. That in jiu-jitsu really doesn't matter about age. I know in Taekwondo, certain age you're not going to be able to do this.
No, you can do it. You can do it
Oh,
forever.
really? Really? And now that you even said that, do you still train in a sense? Do you still train a little bit?
So I work out, and part of my workout, some Taekwondo is in there. But do I go kick targets? No. But I still work out. I believe in being healthy and all that stuff. The foundation is there. I still can kick to the face. I still can do a lot of the stuff. But yeah, I keep it kind of foundational. But Taekwondo is a all long, like I know some like 7-degree black belts that are like 87 years old. Like Taekwondo is a all your whole life kind of sport because there's levels to it. Like, of course, the 87-year-old is not going to nationals, but you can still do the kicks and punches and stuff like that modified for yourself. And it's a sport that that's why I'm fond of Taekwondo over some of the other ones. It's a sport that it doesn't matter your level. If you only can kick to your toe, you can start there. Like, and it builds on that because it's such a full body sport. So yeah, anybody can do Taekwondo at any time. Whatever you have, you got a bad knee, you can do Taekwondo. You can have Taekwondo is also a Paralympian sport now. And so it's an all around sport that you can do at all times. I still compete. I mean, not compete. I still train a little bit. But I do it for different reasons. I'm not trying to compete or anything like that. I'm retired.
No. I get that. It's I don't Amir's not competing. I'm not competing, but do I train a lot? Yes, I train, try to teach others. It's one of the best things I for me personally I ever decided to do. And it sounds like it's the same thing for you, Nia. Like it was the best thing you ever decided that you want to do and you made it part of your life. You didn't make it something separate. Like, I go to work. You was like, this is something I do every day. This is part of my life. I get up, I eat, sleep, taekwondo. It's gonna be to me to the day I die, and that's when you're very passionate and love something so much. And I love hearing that. And I want to say because we're getting close to time. What do you want to leave the black belts and boardrooms audience? What would you want to leave for them?
Two things. Again, follow me on any of your social medias. One thing that we didn't mention, I am also a part of the Houston Olympians chapter. We're having a pickleball tournament for all you pickleball people. So please check out that's in September. Check out the book. But also just make sure that I have a motto called Bacho, and I'll give you a little bit background of what Bacho means. In Taekwondo, I don't know if you know, we yell. We do different yells. And in the 90s, we were getting kind of like fun about it. So we would say pacho, macho, bacho, and stuff like that instead of just doing a regular yell. And so me and my friends just started saying bacho for everything. Like we would call Taekwondo bacho, be like, "You gonna go bacho today?" Or we would say like anytime even now when I watch movies, if somebody does a cool kick, I go bacho. It's just a saying. And so when I retired and really started thinking about kind of my life and my journey, I learned that you should have kind of a motto when you're talking about it. And so I tell people to live like a champion through Bacho. And what Bacho stands for is believe, associate, choose, hone, and obtain. And so I found out that the steps to being successful, whether it's in Taekwondo, whether it's being the best teacher you've ever met, whether it's being the president, are those things. You first got to believe that you can be a champion. You got to associate the thing that you're a champion in. You got to choose to do the work. You got to hone in on that skill and not get distracted by other things. And then the last one that people always forget is obtain. People do all these things and they go there and they don't grab it. And so just obtaining it at the end and grabbing what you worked hard for. And so if I can leave anybody else with that, I want y'all to believe in Bacho, and really understand that you can be a champion in things that you want to do. And that's that thing that you do. Like I said, when I woke up, that's the thing that I did. That thing that if you wake up and you're always saying, I want to help people, or you wake up and you say, I want to be creative, like you can be a champion in that. And so I want to leave people with that of thinking like a champion through Bacho. And just follow me through this journey. I'm excited about kind of this next step. I'll often think of my life in sections of like that was a life that I left, and now this is a second life. I say that I'm in my third life now. My daughter is grown up now and like kind of doing her own thing, and so now this is the time for all the work that I did through the Olympic time, all the work that I did in the business era to combine those things and figure out how I can help as many people as possible.
Oh, that's great. Now, since you mentioned your daughter, I have to ask: did she follow in your footsteps of Taekwondo, or
So
did she
yes and
decide to
no.
do something else?
Yeah,
Yes and
yes
no.
and no.
Okay.
So she's a junior black belt. Well, she should be black belt now, but she's a junior, basically a junior black belt. What happened was when I had to decide either do my taekwondo school or go back to school, and so I closed my school, so she stopped in. But I never wanted her to actually do sports in general. She did it because she saw me doing it and she did it and she enjoyed it. But I didn't want her to have to shadow underneath me. I didn't want her to come, especially in Taekwondo, to have to come up and everybody be like, oh, that's Nia Abdallah's daughter. I wanted her to find her own path. And that's what she eventually did, was find her own thing that was separate from what I did. And so I'm a little bit glad that she had to quit for that sake, because I didn't want her to have that pressure. But she, of course, she knows the basics. She helps me at Olympic Day every year. because we do camps for Olympic Day. So she helps me every year. She knows all the kicks. She probably is more physically talented than I was, anyways, uh, because I had to do a little bit more work than she did to do some of the things she did. But she has the foundation. She keeps saying that she wants to do it again, but we'll see if she starts again.
No,
Wow.
that is awesome. That is awesome. And the last thing I'm gonna ask, we always ask, what's your theme music? When you walk into the office, when you get ready for, might be the gym. What's that theme music that you like to play to get you ready?
So this is was an interesting question because I was trying to think. I'm a music person, so like I was thinking of a million like different songs, and I kept thinking of them in errors. But one song that has kind of stayed through all the errors is India Rees I Am Not My Hair. And the reason why is because that song really talks about how I am not what other people tell me I am. I'm who I am. And I like that song because one of my biggest mottos in life is I always want to live on the right side of statistics. And so what I mean by that is anytime we talk about statistics, normally we talk about it from the negative standpoint. We're like 14% don't make it or 30% do the we always talk it from the negative side, but there's always another side of it. So if 30% don't make it, that means 70 does. And so I try to live my life in the positive side because I'm beating worse odds. And being an Olympian, it's like 1 out of 2 million people have been an Olympian. People talk about that and they think of themselves as a 2 million. I think of myself as the one. And so that song really, really expresses of like it doesn't matter what the outside people is. I'm not what you told me I am. I'm who I am, and I'm on the right side of statistics.
I like that.
Powerful.
That's the way you end a podcast right there. I love that. I love that. Nia, thank you so much for being on Black Belts and Boardrooms. It was great. I mean, it was inspiring to be honest. I don't know about you, Amir, but I'm inspired. Um, and all I can say is thank you. And for our Black Belts and Boardrooms audience, we will see you on the next one.
Awesome.